everyone. Welcome to The Mystic View. I'm Dr. Kimberly, and I'm going to run through my little spiel really fast because I don't want to miss a second with David and Robbie. But you can find me and the show at drkimberlyrackley.com. Go check it out, get a reading, experience my craziness. And I'm really excited tonight to have David Rountree, who you guys know from the show 2 weeks ago, and everybody pretty much knows David. A lot of people know Robbie too, but he's not as forward with his experiences as David is as of yet. But David and Robbie Lunt are the authors of Demon Street USA, and they are going to tell us all about it. David, Robbie, are you there?
Of course we're
Just making sure.
Although Robbie, he's kind of doing the little twirly gig up here.
Yeah, he's like this little blue flashing box on my screen.
Yeah, I'm looking at this kind of a little spiraling thing going around and around, and it's kind of reminding me of infinity, which would make sense in Robbie's case. So how you doing? How you guys doing tonight?
Looking at myself on the screen, I have a very nice video, and I lit myself really well. It was...
Well, I'll just have to have you back on so we can highlight your handsomeness.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and your very cool aura, because when I was looking at your aura earlier, wow, it kind of blew me away. It's like looking at David. Pretty strong auras you got.
It's a funny thing about our auras.
Auras or auras?
Is that what I said?
Yeah, it kind of came off as auras. What's on your mind?
I won't go there. I'm getting ready to fly to Colorado Springs, so I'm a little hyped up, you know.
I'm so excited for you. I know Junebug's excited too.
Oh yeah, and Junebug's in the chat room, so you know.
I know it's here.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah, I'm so happy about all that.
It's wonderful. Yes, giddy. The word giddy comes to mind. Yeah, I love doing a show and looking at the chat room and seeing her in there. It's very reassuring to me. So.
Yeah. You need that. You haven't had that in such a long time.
No, there's so many things that I've never had that I have now, so it's just wonderful.
It's like a reward.
It's, she's like my right arm, you know? Can't say it any different than that.
I know. Mine's that way too, even when we fight over tomatoes, so.
That's a kind of an insignificant thing to fight over.
Well, that's what I thought too.
You should be fighting over like thermonuclear proliferation of Iran or something like that, you know.
Well, apparently I cut the slice too thick for his hamburger, so but I was in a hurry.
You know, amazingly, I don't have that problem. I mean, we have everything, like we agree on everything, including which way the toilet paper is put on the roll.
It's
usually amazing.
Do. Yeah. But give it 9 years, and then, you know, you have a bad day and you might snap at each other.
I don't know. After 8 millennium, I think we kind of got it down pat. It's like there's no surprises for us anymore other than, oh, yeah, I remember that.
Well,
so what are we...
I think Robbie should tell us about himself, since not many people have heard his interviews or anything. Because I know he's an arcanologist. Exactly what does that mean?
Arcanology. I'll be quite honest with you. It's something that friends of mine and I are coining, because it's the study of the esoteric, the metaphysical, the hidden. We're somebody that, when you look at all of the things out there, there's usually a root to it. And arcanologists try to find that root, like trying to find what the truth is about Sasquatch if you're into cryptozoology. Or if you're dealing with the martial arts, where, in, say, Tai Chi, where does the root of Tai Chi actually come from? What is the energy that you're using for that? To something as mundane as Judaism. The true esoteric teachings of Judaism are the Kabbalah, and an arcanologist would try to find those depths in all of the different facets. It's really multi-denominational in discipline. It's
very interesting. Well, especially because I'm, you know, a doctor of metaphysics. I like to lean into all those things myself, but I never would have known it was called something
Really?
specific.
I do like brain surgery on Saturdays. That's kind of like my new thing now. I come in with my ice pick and a can opener, and you know.
This is the next step in your research, or this is for your fun time?
Yeah, I just like to cut people's heads open on Saturday.
It's a relaxing pastime.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Oh.
It's really the people that look into the deep, dark recesses of what's around, trying to find what the truth is at the base level.
The truth be known is Robbie wanted to have an original title.
There is that too.
Yeah, he just didn't want to be like a shaman or a paranormal researcher or a witch doctor or a voodoo priest. He wanted to be like an arcanologist. And I thought it was a great idea because
That's so true.
he's like the only one, you know?
No, actually, that's not true. There's at least 3 others.
Oh.
I have
so
a group. I have a group in Colorado that I'm affiliated with, and we are all looking in, like again, into alchemy and into what the truth of alchemy is. It really had nothing to do with changing things to gold. It was more about really plumbing the depths of your being so that you could release the true spirit of yourself.
Well, man, I'm all about that turning stuff into gold thing, man. Like,
Well, that's true.
you know, I think there's a future in that.
Somebody better help me turn something into gold.
Really. I need some nuggets.
That's why you should come out here. We have hills full of them. You just have to find them.
I have a pretty good idea. I'm going to be moving to Colorado. I don't know what's telling me that, but
Oh, gee, I wonder.
I'm getting that drift.
Yeah. Yeah. Prediction. David's moving to Colorado.
Yeah. Wednesday's like, it's not me. Yes, it is.
Well, I really, Dave, I can't wait to get you to Crestone.
Well,
I think you're going to find that an amazing, amazing place.
it's kind of funny. We've been planning this Nevada trip for a year now. And this whole concept of coming out to Nevada and us doing all this stuff we've talked about doing. And so I said something to Wednesday about it, and she kind of flipped out because Wednesday's always wanted to go to Nevada. And I'm like, well, you're coming with me because I'm not going without you, kind of thing. And then she told me this whole story about she had a dream and she wants to get married in Nevada in a red dress. And so, you know what? When the time comes, that's what we're going to do.
Not at the chicken ranch, right?
No. We're going to talk to Robbie, and Robbie's going to help us come up with a great place to do it at. So.
That's awesome. I've only been to
Virginia City could be a lot of fun.
And Robbie will be the best man, and maybe that'll make up for not going to Hawaii, which is a private joke.
Yeah, I was supposed to get an all-expense trip to Hawaii, and
Yeah.
I got shafted.
Well, that was a joke, too.
Yeah, I'm glad that trip's off.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Oh, Wednesday just weighed in. She said, we can go to Hawaii, too, babe. I'm all about that.
Robbie go to Hawaii with us.
Yeah.
There's some places in Hawaii I would love to go. Of course, they're not the normal tourist places, but...
Oh, yeah. It's funny. Eric just pointed out that, not only did we write a book together, but we have very similar hats.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, you guys have been friends for like ages, right?
Oh, my God. Like, since the early 80s.
Oh.
It's okay, Robbie.
Like the early 80s. I think Robbie and I met around 83 or 84, somewhere around there.
Would have been 83.
Yeah. My memory is not the greatest when it comes to my early years at the University of Florida, but Robbie and I met early in my career at the University of Florida. And and 83 sounds just about right, because that's when I kind of broke out of slinging tables and started doing shows full time. And,
But it was close enough that you had to take me to the side at one point and lecture me that I was not dealing with union stagehands and I could not treat the student stagehands the way I was.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, see, I had a student crew. They were college students. And, you know, amazingly, we had a lot of good people working for us. I mean, those kids would literally follow us through the gates of hell. Some did occasionally, and smile as they did it. Although I had this routine down, because like I would come in to the show early in the morning, and Robbie was like my foreman guy, man. He came in and he started getting everybody working. And I was sitting there going over the plans, the drawings for the show, and trying to figure out how we were going to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm not thinking real clear first thing in the morning, as everyone that knows me knows. I'm not a morning person is a dramatic understatement. But
I'm with you on that one.
Robbie goes, Dave, you just have to eat a garlic bagel with scallion spread. And my God, it worked.
Really?
No one asked me any questions until well after noon.
Well.
And Robbie would eat one and go out and yell at everybody. So
I bet you didn't get any kisses before noon either.
yeah, he would like clear the stage. It was great.
Not a lot has changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think it was destiny that you guys met when you did at the university?
Oh, absolutely.
Looking back, I mean, nothing in our life is coincidental. So
Exactly.
I'm absolutely positive we crossed paths for a reason, you know? I mean, we had a whole history before this whole thing in 1985 occurred. I mean, we were traveling around. I was kind of like a part-time worker for the company Robbie worked for, so I would help out sometimes on shows, and we had this whole adventure history on the road doing stuff, and then we had this history at the university doing stuff, and you know, and then we did a lot of stuff that we just did stuff on our own and stuff. So we had quite a colorful history to begin with, and I'm firmly convinced that we crossed paths for a reason.
A teacher always appears when it's necessary for you, and I obviously needed the lessons as they came to me. Whether I wanted them or not, I needed them.
Yeah, Junebug, she just wants to give you a hug, Robbie.
Oh, that's so sweet.
She read the book and she says, I just so want to give Robbie a hug.
I know. I did too.
Well, because Robbie gets put in these precarious situations in the book, and he doesn't question them. I mean, I piss him off all through the book because I set him up for this ridiculous stuff to happen to him.
You do.
He gets mad at me and everything, but you know what? When I tell him to do something or I ask him to do it, he does it. He does it without question, and he does it. And he learns. I mean, you can follow him in the book as he develops. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it was so funny because Wednesday was telling me the other night when she finished the book, she reached a point where Robbie actually made a shamanic decision in the book on his own.
Yes.
And she recognized it. She said, oh my God, Robbie made it. He's a shaman now. And she's kind of relating to Robbie right now because of circumstances in our own life. She's developing herself and having remembrances, and things are coming back to her. So she's like really relating with Robbie in the story and what he went through to do what he ended up doing.
Yeah.
And so that part of it is kind of interesting. And I'm finding out with these test readers just how different the book affects different people. And I'm coming to the conclusion that this book is going to affect a lot of people on a lot of different levels in a lot of different ways.
I think so too. Because I was absorbed with the spiritual aspects, the metaphysical aspects, the occult aspects, the paranormal aspects, like the whole thing. I was trying to pick apart what was most important to remember as I was reading. It was hard because it just contains everything.
Well, it's such an onion kind of story. There's so many layers of it. I mean, people ask me what the book's about, and I can say, well, it's about encountering a demon in 1985, but that falls so short of telling you what it's about, because It's about personal growth. It's about spiritual development. It's about the lessons in life, lessons in spirituality. It's about so many different things. And it's kind of like, you know, to make someone a shaman, you kind of have to trick them into learning. And the book kind of tricks you into absorbing.
Yes.
At a lot of different levels, and you don't realize it until you get just about finished with the book that, oh my God, you know, I've been taken for a ride here, you know. And a lot of people, and Robbie and I talked about this, a lot of people are going to read this story and say it's, you know, it's all bullshit. You know, there's no way this stuff could happen. But there's stuff in the book that you just can't make up. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
You know, you got to be pretty sharp to make some of this stuff up, you know, and even if people don't buy it as truth, it's a good story.
But yeah. I think what really comes through, though, is the fact that we've really been brutally honest in this book.
Oh, absolutely. And we toned it down. We toned it down significantly and cut 10,000 words out of the manuscript before it went to publication, Rented Lips.
Poor Junebug. I can't imagine you toning anything down. So that's just amazing to me right there.
Oh, she gets all blown away every day by me, and she's like, quit blowing me away. You blow me away every day. Quit blowing me away. But, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and what was so interesting is that when we finished living the book, we knew that we were going to have to write the book one day.
Yeah.
But there was absolutely no way we could write the book back then.
Because you were still too close to it, to the experience?
It's not even that. It's because the world wasn't ready for it.
Well, yeah.
Back in 1985, when Robbie and I ended this, the world wasn't ready to accept this sort of thing. I mean, ghost hunting was like still taboo.
Yeah.
You know, you basically didn't tell people what you were doing when you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't a household word. I mean, this is like right after, the only TV show that had been on up to that point was like In Search Of.
Yeah.
And then at that particular time, Sightings was kind of like a popular show. And it really wasn't so mainstream, the whole concept of the paranormal. It had a little niche market, nothing like it is now.
And
so we
quite
couldn't really
frankly,
tell the story. Go ahead, Robbie, I'm sorry.
Had we told this story to certain people, we would have been thrown into the lockup.
Locked up.
Instantly.
Yeah, we would have been out at North Florida Evaluation and Treatment Center.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would have been doing the NFETC shuffle.
I mean, it's definitely, and I think that I think we needed to be ready to deal with the side effects of writing the book too. I mean, things are coming out of the woodwork and coming up and saying hello that perhaps right after it we wouldn't have been able to deal with as well as we've been able to deal with it now.
Exactly. And the thing that's so interesting about that is there's a second book that we just finished living around October of last year. And we're currently living the third book right now. I mean, literally, there's a sequel in the works that we've already kind of finished living, and we just have to sit down and try to put together what part of it we want to tell. And then it's continuing right now, and we're all still experiencing effects from it. So the story's not over by any means. It's a continuing saga, and that's kind of cool, too, because it means, you know, we have a significant future in writing books.
Yeah, that's good.
Ahead of us. So, you know, that aspect of it is, in the way we ended the book, we left the book kind of open, you know. We didn't anticipate the book having a sequel when we wrote it. But it just so happens we sort of ended it, you know, up in the air so that, you know, there's no problem continuing the story.
Yeah, I thought you ended it great.
Yeah, it just kind of leaves you there.
It does. I like that. I love leaving people hanging anyway, so.
Yeah, it just kind of leaves you there. It kind of, and there's a lot of closure in the second book for the first book. Because there's a lot of things that we didn't know when we were writing the first book or when we were living the first book there were things that went on that we were unaware of, and we didn't find out until years later. 27 years later, we found out, you know, a lot of things happened that we didn't know about.
Wow.
And we were paying the price for that. So, you know, it's like the show that never ends, you know. It just kind of keeps on loving you.
And I've continued on with being a crash test dummy. It's, you know, I was very blessed to get another teacher, John Milton, and I found that it's the same thing, though, as we're going out to look at stone meditation seats with a group. It'll be, well, somebody sit in this seat. By the end of the tour, everybody just turns and looks at me. I haven't quite figured that one out.
Well, you know, you're the one that likes to touch those sparky headstones, so.
Yeah, you think I would have learned by now.
I don't think I could roll on the ground laughing anymore. I mean, Robbie thought I was hurt. He thought I had a heart attack or something. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. But the funny thing about all of this is that what we do in the book is we break a lot of taboos that are currently in the field right now. You know, there's definite line between the metaphysical and the physical. There's, you know, there's the D word that everyone kind of throws around like, if, you know, for anything. But there's more things out there than demons. There's more things out there than ghosts. You know, there's all these inorganic beings that are floating around. There's elemental beings. There's all sorts of energies out there that may appear to be demonic at first, but actually aren't demonic. They're actually kind of a neutral energy. You're just in their way.
Yeah.
And they have a personal agenda. And if you're in their way, well, they're going to treat you like crap. So, you know, a lot of things are misinterpreted as demonic.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of angry nature spirits out there right now, too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the thing that's beautiful about writing the story is when we started it, we really had no idea how we were going to write it. I mean, we talked about a lot of different styles of writing it. Robbie came up with the idea, let's do it like a journal, kind of like Dracula was written. And that just wasn't comfortable for me. Although, so we kind of modified that idea, and we decided that we would do kind of like a softball throw, where we would take each chapter and put it in a historical context to the event, and then we would bat it back and forth as to what I was going through, and then hand it back off, and Robbie would go what he was going through. So everything that's going on in each chapter has our name next to it, and
I love that.
That's our part of the event. And it was kind of cool because it kept us separated. It gave the reader two different perspectives of the story. And I think that added a lot of insight to what was going on. And then, of course, my favorite part is the lessons at the beginning of each chapter.
I love those.
Because they kind of go full circle. They start out with teachings that Black Eagle gave to me, and then probably 3/4 of the way in the book, they kind of shift to lessons I'm giving Robbie that don't make it into the text. And yet, the chapters reflect the lesson learned. Maybe not in the same chapter that the lesson appears, but maybe a chapter or two later, and it forces the reader to kind of reflect and say, wow, yeah, okay, got it. And then it comes full circle again back to my lessons. But that's kind of a story within the story itself. And, I mean, I've had people that just went through and they said, well, I did an experiment after I read the book. I just went through and read the lessons, and they were like, that was profound. And I said, well, yeah. I said, every part of the book, every subplot of the book will stand by itself. That's the cool thing about it.
Yeah.
Like every little subplot that goes along would stand by itself as its own story if you wanted to expand it out. And that's the beauty of the book.
Were there any like difficult emotions that came up for you too while you were writing the book?
Yeah, fear was a big one. You know, we were all in a situation we had never been in before. The role I played in the story was that of the teacher, and kind of like the organizer of the whole thing. So it was kind of tough for me because I could never let them be worried that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I didn't. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The whole story includes a journey to find out what to do. I mean, we knew different things, but we had to look for very specific things to deal with this with. And there was no manual for it. You know, there was no directions, and the nature of this thing was from a situation that there were no known banishments for it.
Right.
So we couldn't simply have just went and got a Bible and read over it and gotten rid of it. Wouldn't have worked. We had to find out specifically what had to be used to banish this thing. And that was a journey in itself within the book as well. So emotions were pretty. I mean, Robbie's probably the one to ask more than me. I mean, my primary emotions during the story was fear, and not necessarily fear for myself, but fear for the rest of the party.
Right.
Well,
I didn't know how prepared they would be. I mean, I believed that they were ready when the time came, but it was a crapshoot because we had some personnel changes midway. We had to bring a new person in. That new person was very young, very kind of naive, kind of a wild card, was the weakest link in the whole thing when she started, but she ended up shining like a light in the end. And she grew personally from the experience as well. Although Robbie ran into her sometime after that, and she was marked for life from it.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why we want to put this out is so many of the groups out there right now they're involving themselves in things with the scientific side of it, not understanding that if you happen to run into some of these shadow entities, it will intrinsically change your life forever.
Absolutely. And, Eric just had a question, and it's a real viable one, and it's one, Robbie, you and I have touched on several times. He says, was Robbie's shamanic journey influenced David's warrior walk? And at the time it did not, but it has so since. And I'll explain why. Issues have come up where I walked away from this. I lost my power animal. I had no power. Nothing came to me, and I walked away from it, and I forgot it. Swept it under the carpet and forgot it. And recently, last year, I made a reconnection the 1st of November. And Andrea Perrone was there, actually, at the Black Swan Inn when it happened.
She's amazing.
Yeah, she was. And she told me when I came back in from the battlefield after I was reborn, she said, "You are a different man than you were when you left here this morning." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And but the thing is like, Robbie, who was the student, is now advising me, who was the teacher, on how to reconnect with my abilities. And it was so funny because it was like a full circle. It was like the teacher becomes the student and the student becomes the teacher.
Right.
It was nice to be on the laughing side.
Yeah.
Instead of the shivering side.
Yeah, and Robbie got to have his laughs at my expense, which I'm sure made him feel a lot better about the laughs I had at his expense back in 1985. But he did. Robbie helped me to reconnect to my abilities, and his concern is you got a whole lot of making up to do. But it strangely didn't turn out to work out that way. It turned out that the first month or so was real sketchy, but then after that, everything started falling into place. And yeah, am I a little rusty? Maybe a little bit, but in the months that have passed, I've been actively practicing and touching people's lives, and it's come back pretty quick. And in fact, I'm growing again. I'm like advancing again. And of course, events of recent history, very recent history here, have enhanced that as well. So, and I really have to thank Junebug for that. So,
yeah, she's amazing.
She's the one.
She is the one. She better
She's
be.
the one. She's the queen. She
So-
is the queen.
What did it feel like to actually complete the book, to finish it? Was there like satisfaction, relief, or was it more healing, or all three?
You know, I don't know that there was healing so much as, quite frankly, when we were writing it, the bouncing it back and forth and the things that we had all forgotten, that all of a sudden it's like, oh wow. And we were lucky enough to have my wife have her input, and she would go, well, did you remember when you guys did this and then came home laughing your asses off? And it was amazing. I really enjoyed the reconnecting with the experience. I've been telling the story for years and years to people that were willing to listen, but to actually get it solidified was very, very satisfying. I think the healing from the experience happened many years ago, but it's always been impressed in my memory. So it was nice to get it out there. And I think, like Dave said, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in it that I think now with some of the changes that are happening, that what we're getting is people are getting more aware, and people are needing to have this kind of direction in their lives to go, oh, what the heck's happening to me? Ooh, read this and then go, ooh, I see some similarities. I was lucky enough that the Castaneda books were out at the time, and I had tried to read them many times before, never got anything out of them, and all of a sudden when my experiences were matching his, it opened it up. And I think that this is something that's going to happen with this book. People are going to go, ooh, I've been having that happen, maybe I'm not crazy.
You know, what's funny is that, you know, Wednesday's having that experience. She read the book, and that's exactly how it affected her. It started bringing back things to her. And that's when I knew that this book was really going to touch a lot of different people in a lot of beneficial ways. With me, I mean, we knew the gist of the story, but details were fleeting. And in the process of us doing what we were doing, details began to emerge, and we remembered them. And that was kind of cool, because in a way we sort of relived it when those details came up. For example, the first sex scene in the book, which I was in, I had totally forgotten it. And Robbie never knew about it, because I never told Robbie about it.
Uh-oh.
And we were writing something, and we were kind of talking back and forth, and I said, you know what? I just remembered something. You're not going to believe this. And he said, what's that? And I said, I had sex with Penelope. And he goes, get out of here. And I'm like, no. I said, I did. And then we had to go through this whole thing to see, should we put it in? Should we not put it in? Is it pertinent to the story? Is it not? Well, it was pertinent to the story.
I thought so.
And, well, it was. But, I mean, you reach that awkward moment where you go, oh, my God, I did. You know, and here's a woman that looked like Grandmama from the Addams Family, from the stress and everything she was going through. So she was not exactly a sexually attractive creature at the time. Not to mention what she was enduring and what she was going through, which also left a mark on her. Which is why the whole thing is so bizarre that it would have happened in the first place. Obviously, there was magic or something going on that was influencing me to do something that I really wouldn't have normally done. But during that process, that came back, and I told Robbie, and Robbie freaked out. He's like, "You're kidding me, really?"
It was an oh my God moment.
Yeah, you know. And I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm not real proud to say it, but yeah, you know. But we added that. But I think the real show stealer is Henry's sex scene, because he got a little bit more than he bargained for. But those were important scenes, and they had to be handled in the right way.
Definitely.
I mean, obviously we couldn't make it pornographic, although I think probably Henry's scene is pretty borderline pornographic. But,
I must agree with that.
yeah. But it is an impactful scene.
It is. It really is.
and when you read it, you're like, oh my God, you know? So the things that we did include in the book, and like I said, we left a lot of stuff out. I mean, and there's a lot of stuff that's been toned down and kind of marginalized because it was just too much. I mean, you couldn't bombard the reader with everything that really happened. It was intense. We lived in tents 24/7 for 3 months.
You can feel that in the book. You can feel that in your words.
We didn't waste a lot of words, and we tried to, and the dialogue is great. And I just want to say that the dialogue is accurate. That's the way Robbie and I talk to each other. So when you're reading the dialogue, you're reading exactly how we spoke to each other. And, you know, we were always making fun of things because that's how we dealt with it. We were always making a joke about it. We were always making light of, you know, these terrible, stressful situations we were in where we didn't know if we were going to live or die every time we were involved in it. And we were like just kidding around and joking and, you know, making light out of it because that's how we dealt with it.
The one thing that my wife really remembers about the whole experience was us coming into the living room, dead white, shaking, and laughing our asses off. Because like I said, that's really what you could do. You could laugh your ass off or quietly go insane, I think.
Yeah, really.
Because it shook many people's realities. And I think one of the things about bouncing back and forth between the 2 points of view that I like is it reinforces the fact that there were many people seeing what was happening. It wasn't an isolated, I saw something or Dave saw something. We were seeing it together, and then there were other witnesses that were all seeing the same thing. So it was either a reality or it was a really good mass hallucination.
Yeah, I totally felt it was real. I mean, one, as a psychic, I can pick up things that are true and not true, especially with paranormal experiences. And I was biting my nails the whole time. It was just so much of everything, almost constantly throughout the book. And I could tell that all of it was real. I didn't doubt one single experience or one single word. And that hardly ever happens to me when I'm reading someone's experiences. It's very intense. And yeah.
You know, one of the things that we really feel about it is even the people that don't believe it in any way whatsoever, it's a hell of a story and it's going to scare them, and that's really what we're shooting for.
Well, I think it's a good book for, especially like the teens that are out there today. They just go in willy-nilly. They really don't have background on any of these kind of things, and I think it's time that they need to know what's really out there. And I think that also if you're going to be a real investigator, you need to be somewhat in tune with either intuition, metaphysics, or, you know, being able to accept that there are other dimensions and energies that we can't explain but are there and may not have a nice agenda. So I think the book's really, it's going to enlighten people. It's going to benefit people, especially investigators, and even mediums and psychics and spiritual people. There's so much within the book that
it has everything. I mean, the book has everything. We've got psychics, mediums. We've got, you know, artifacts. We've got, you know, you got heaven. We got hell. We've got demons.
Yeah.
You know, there's everything in it.
Mm-hmm.
And even away from the original site, we have adventures. You know, in Robbie's path of learning, I had to take him to places where he could be accessible to power. And
Devil's Millhopper.
Devil's Millhopper, Payne's Prairie,
Yeah.
Lake Alice. I mean, we went to places that normally are high traffic areas, but it seems like every time we went, there was no one there.
There was nothing.
There was no one there. I mean, how many times you pull up to the Devil's Millhopper and the parking lot's empty? Like, no one there. You know?
That was one of the most fascinating things looking back on it. I mean, really looking back on it. There really, every time we were doing something that was mystical in nature, and we were left alone. It was quite wild.
Well, probably by design. Cosmic.
Oh, sure. Power dictates everything in those cases. You know, it's like with Robbie. Robbie was kind of hard to teach because he had to be shown everything, and part of the problem was him letting go of his rational mind. Robbie has his background in martial arts, so he has a very disciplined mind when it comes to logic and reality. And we had to kind of crumble that a little bit, and that was difficult to do. So Robbie, I really had to shock Robbie in a couple of different situations to get him to open up, to get going with what he had to do. Once he was able to do that, he soared like an eagle. I mean, he took it and ran. I mean, but getting that initial wall to crumble a little bit to get through it was the shock factor that had to be done there. And I set him up over and over again.
You did.
In situations. I know Wednesday's like, feel so sorry for him. But he learned. I mean, that's how he had to learn. Does everyone have to learn that way? No, everyone learns differently, but Robbie had to learn that way.
But you know, that kind of thing is kind of universal in shaman teaching.
It is.
To shock people out of their reality, because that's what we spend our whole lives doing, building those walls and building all of those portals that we don't go through. And it takes that shock to your nature to break some of that down. Of course, the bad side of it is it's a one-way door and it hits you in the ass as you walk through it. You can't go back even if you claw at it going, I don't want to see this stuff. But it's
yeah. I told him, I said, you know, the working title of the book was Careful What You Wish For. Because in the beginning he was like, you know, I want to be a shaman, you know, I want to learn this. And I said, well, you know, think very carefully about it, because once you start, you can't stop. You can't go back and say, you know, game over, I'm quitting. You know, you're going to be living with it the rest of your life. And he was like, no, he says, I want to do it. And even then, we didn't move on it because it's like I didn't see it. And it wasn't until he came to me with this from Penelope that Power said, you know, you're going to have to show him what to do or he's going to die and you're going to die. And when Power says that stuff to you, you kind of listen.
Yeah.
And so then we began in earnest. And the thing that was so crazy is we had 3 months. And I had to squeeze what I had learned over the course of several years into 3 months. And so Robbie got the crash course in shamanism, and he was like pushed to the limit. And that's why we would go out one day and I would trick him into, you know, doing one thing, and then the next day I was tricking him into something else. You know, he was learning dreaming and stalking, and he was learning all these different things at the same time, and his clarity was coming to him, and he was like, he really was like a clusterfuck there for a while. Because everything was hitting him at once. He was literally, you know, what the hell's going to happen next, you know? But then it all came together, and it came together exactly when it had to. And he gelled perfectly, and he acted impeccably. And then the night of the final confrontation, of course, we were able to do what we had to do.
That was intense, I must say.
The aftermath was what blew us away.
I don't.
The aftermath blew us away. When we actually reconned the place afterwards and saw what we had done to it. And I think that was probably, everybody was silent. I mean, we drove by and no one said a word. Everyone was in the van, you know, the Mr. T van.
The black van.
We went rolling through there doing about 102 miles an hour on 2 wheels. And no one said a word. Everyone just looked at it, and no one said a word. It was just that kind of impact.
It was like thunderstruck.
It really was. It's then when it dawns on you at that point the power that you truly wield in your hand.
Yeah.
We tried to get the final confrontation down, and I think we barely scratched the surface of what it was like. You can't explain what it was like in that room that night.
No. My living room was my living room was transformed into another world, literally, around us. we had a core of reality that we sat in inside that circle, and everything outside that circle was really a completely different reality than what we were in.
Wow. That has to be an amazing experience.
Well, it kind of makes concentration difficult.
Well, yeah.
The whole experience really was amazing and almost unbelievable. If I hadn't lived it, I wouldn't believe it.
Oh, sure. If somebody told me this story, I'd say they were full of crap. But living it, we had to take things out of it because we feared people would think it was too much, because what we went through was really too much. It was too many. and the fact that we managed to get through it relatively unscathed, others did not. Others were dramatically affected by it.
Well, it affects your consciousness. It affects you at every level when you've dealt with evil or darkness for so long.
I mean, there was a student that was involved. He never came back to school. He left to college.
Wow.
And actually I became friends with his brother later on and found that he never discussed it with his family ever. It shook him to the core.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there was walking wounded from this.
Yeah. Well, how did Robbie's wife handle everything? Was she affected in any way? Like, was she getting side effects from Robbie's experience?
Now, that one's very interesting because we were told by two different psychics that she had this huge guardian spirit that was watching out for her. In fact, at one point, it had to be told to back off a little bit because Leah's very sensitive. But she was protected the whole time, and again, spirit acting as it does. If she had been in danger, or if I had perceived she had been in danger, I would have not been involved. So something manifested to make sure that I walked this path. The whole experience scared the hell out of her because she was at home and we'd come white, and it didn't help that we actually lived in a haunted house at the time,
which by the way collapsed recently.
Did it really?
When activity began against Robbie and I again, that house imploded. It literally imploded. We have pictures of it. And that was the house Robbie and Lee were living in at the time.
Wow. See, that's another reason I enjoyed the book is all the places. I grew up in Gainesville, and I own property in Levy County, so I've been to and know everywhere that you've been in the book. And knowing what happened to you guys in each of those places and everything, that was another big thrill for me reading the book.
Yeah, well, Levy County had a connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
But it was one of the cool things about writing the book now is being able to hit the internet to get research done. When we tried to research Levy County back in the early 80s, nothing. There was nothing. It's like somebody had whitewashed the history. And it's only in the last, 10, 15 years that they've actually discussed the Roseville Massacre.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was telling David, my property, the old Florida Railroad that supposedly the Rosewood train came on, that railroad track goes right through my front yard in Levy County. And there are some strange things that go on at our property. People are afraid of our driveway. We have a ghost, an old black man in overalls who eats cereal with my son every morning. So there's I think there are lots of places that the energy of Rosewood carries wherever all those people went to after the massacre itself. So, just my little thought, sorry. Continue.
It's one of those very interesting coincidental occurrences.
Yes. Yes. And I don't believe in coincidental occurrences.
Yeah. You guys will have to come to my property and do your shaman thing for me.
Our shaman thing, you may never be able to go back to it again. There may be a huge thermonuclear explosion occur on it when we go there. What's fascinating is Robbie and I have not been together in a metaphysical situation since that day.
Really?
Yeah. So it's going to be very fascinating to when we cross paths again this summer in some very sacred places near where he lives, and I fully anticipate it to be quite an adventure. Just because we haven't combined our energy physically together in a single location in quite some time. So I'm kind of looking forward to that manifestation and hoping that the world doesn't come to an end when it happens. But,
well, like I was telling you before the show, you guys, your energies are almost the same, and it's like it complements each other. I would hate to be coming up against you consciously or psychically with you two together.
Well, you know, a lot of that has to do with the nature of the power that Robbie initially formed with. You know, I had a lot to do with the power that he initially formed with. And it's kind of, in a very bizarre and indirect way, it's hereditary in that aspect. In other words, your benefactor who brings you into it, you take a certain amount of his power to get started, because in the beginning I had to pump power into Robbie so he could survive some of the encounters I put him into.
Yeah.
So a certain amount of his power is mixed with mine to begin with. And then everybody that he teaches, a certain amount of my power through him is mixed along with his power added to it through them. And it becomes an accumulative thing and a connection down through time. So the people that, Black Eagle, for example, who passed on the power to me, that power came from him and from his ancestors that passed it on to him. And they may or may not have been blood related, but the power makes them related. In other words, the power runs through them just like your genetics runs through you. That power is unique to that line of people passing it on. So
similar to Reiki, the Reiki lineage, because I'm a Reiki master and I carry the power of those before me.
It's very similar to Reiki, and I would postulate that it's the same type of energy. It's just manifesting in a different way. Go ahead, Robbie.
No, I'm second degree Reiki, so I understand. Also, in the Buddhist and the Taoist teachings, there's a transmission factor, which is why you need a teacher in front of you rather than trying to pick it up from books or from the, well, you can get a little bit from the internet, but you truly have to have that teacher in front of you, and he can be talking about the most mundane thing in the world, yet you're getting a full level teaching and your body is absorbing the energy. One of my patron saints is Padmasambhava, and I've been blessed to receive that transmission, and I can feel that resonance. It's a very, very powerful thing that these Eastern teachers, but one of the funny things is they don't like to tell Westerners that they're doing it because there seems to be a worry that it's an invasive kind of energy, and it's not. It's a wonderful gift. Mm-hmm. But in the same way that Dave, I was able to receive that transmission. It's all a lot in the vernacular. It's all the same thing, but the words kind of change. But we're still discussing the same concept.
Right.
Same thing as chi. It's the life force. What shaman do is they manipulate the life force, and they also manipulate the forces of nature, and they combine those two. And that's what the whole thing's about. It's that simple. There's no big voodoo, whatever about it. It's about manipulating the biofield or the chi force or the life force in a human being, and then manipulating the forces of nature around it and altering that reality by doing that.
Yes, I agree. Well, David, Mr. Producer Guy says we got to wrap up. I'm having too much fun.
Well, he needs to give you more time. He needs to give you 2 hours instead of 1.
He does. Wink, wink.
He's
well, you have a show in 4 minutes anyway, The Devil's Advocate.
Yeah, I do. I got to scoot out and start my show. So, boy, it was real fun being here.
Thank you guys very much. I love having you on. Robbie, I'm so happy to finally meet you.
Absolutely, and I can't wait till we meet in person.
Me too. Thank you.
All
Thank you
righty.
very much.